Why is your awakening journey full of so much confusion? On the one hand, you feel like you're making a whole lot of progress, and on other days, you feel like you're falling back into old cycles, old patterns. So, which one is it? Are you moving forward or backwards? So, in this video, I really want to talk about what this rise and pullback really is indicating, why it's absolutely normal for you to go through this, and why you are still headed in the right direction. And hopefully, with this information, you'll give yourself that grace that you need on this awakening journey, understanding there is actually no way to really bypass this phase. So the first thing you really want to understand about your awakening journey is that it is non-linear. Even though you may be putting in all the right effort to move inwards and upwards, you are not going to be able to see all that progress happen in a straight line. And really, how this is going to unfold is through oscillations. Oscillations are basically natural cycles of expansion and contraction. This is when you experience a whole lot of clarity one day and maybe a lot of self-doubt and confusion the next day. You are trying to move forward with optimism, but the next day you're feeling a whole lot of negativity coming back from your old patterns. And so you need to understand that this is absolutely normal. The reason why this is occurring is that even though you are making, forward movement and momentum in the right direction, your body, your psyche, and your nervous system need some time to catch up. It is not yet ready to move to these higher states of consciousness that you are trying to tap into. And therefore, the way that this ends up manifesting in your reality is, one day of positivity and one day a whole lot of confusion. And so just understand as you go through this process that this is absolutely normal. Because if you do not understand what is really occurring, a lot of people end up looking at this confusion as failure, taking a look at, all the time that they are spending on this journey as really going to waste. You end up comparing your own journey to other people's and taking a look at how much faster they're moving forward versus you. Remember that you should not have a timetable or a deadline for your awakening journey. That's almost like setting yourself up for failure. If you say to yourself, I'm going to be fully awakened by the end of this year, that is not how this journey really works. Yes, there might be people on this, awakening journey that might accomplish what you're trying to get to maybe in 6 months, maybe a year, and it may take you 2 years, 3 years, maybe a little bit more. But that also has to do with your own load that you are dealing with on this awakening journey. You may have a lot more to work through. And I also want to add that while, what I'm talking about here applies to all sorts of awakenings, those that experience a Kundalini awakening journey have it much more, difficult, much more rougher as you kind of move through your oscillations. There's a lot more that's coming up for you due to your ancestral healing. So with that being said, understand that, time is not an indicator, not a good indicator on your awakening journey. The oscillations are absolutely necessary and a part of the process, because the only way for your nervous system, your body, your psyche to really catch up, it needs time for integration. Now, one of the best ways that I can really explain this to you is think about, a baby. When a baby finally is ready to walk, how does it finally get up? Do you see a child really just get up and all of a sudden walk all the way across the room? No. The first time you see them, they are trying to stand up. They're trying to catch their balance. The second time you see them, they are holding themselves up for a little bit longer. And then they walk a few steps and then they stumble and fall. But then they get back up again, and this time they can do it for a bit longer. Well, your awakening journey is unfolding exactly the same way. You are not yet ready to hold that vibration because it is so new to you. You need some time to integrate what you are experiencing. And so with that, your body needs some time, your mind needs some time to catch up, your nervous system needs some time to catch up. And that is exactly why you're also trying to ground at the same time, doing breath work, meeting all your patterns with awareness, because that is actually what's going to help you move through this phase to start stabilizing your frequency at those higher levels of consciousness. So how do oscillations really work? Well, if you talk about your consciousness, for example, your consciousness has a capacity to expand much faster than what your nervous system can actually regulate and hold. And therefore, the system automatically, to create a sense of equilibrium, you could say, does what we would call a pullback. This is when you go from experiencing the high to all of a sudden the low. And really what's happening is your body is just trying to make itself feel safe so that it can really adjust, have some time to really cope up with this new level of heightened consciousness. And so, another way you could look at this is if you had an elastic band that all of a sudden you started stretching and stretching. If you keep stretching it very quickly, fast enough, what's going to happen? That elastic band is going to snap. Well, your nervous system is that same way. It needs some time to adjust to that stretching that your consciousness is asking for. And therefore, the pullback, which unfortunately for you may look like, exhaustion. It may look like an emotional response where all of a sudden you feel like crying. You are now focusing on your self-doubt. Maybe you're focusing on, doubting your own journey. All of that is a part of the process. But when that happens to you, knowing what I've just shared now, you should give yourself some grace to understand that your body is just going through a whole lot of confusion and is just trying to handle and catch up to what it is experiencing. And that is why you're going through these phases. This is not an indication of you not making progress. This is not an indication of you falling behind or going in the wrong direction. So instead of taking these oscillations as, what am I doing wrong on my journey? What is not happening? Why am I not doing this fast enough? Just take a moment to pause and focus on what you can control. And that is your breath work. That is your meditation. That is bringing awareness to the situation, transmuting the negative emotions that you experience in that moment. And that is going to help you to keep moving in the right direction. Now, one of the key things you want to remember as you move forward on your awakening journey is that, it's going to feel great when you move towards those periods of expansion. But when you are met with the contractions, when you are met with those negative lows, you really want to find a way to stabilize yourself. It's almost like, if you were building a house, you wouldn't keep putting more and more structures down, more and more floors before stabilizing your foundation. And in order for you to stabilize yourself at those higher frequencies, your foundation needs to be strong. And in order for it to be strong, each time something bubbles up to the surface, such as self-doubt, such as some negative thoughts, such as, your doubt in the overall journey, you want to meet it with awareness. Make sure that you are using the right practices and moving with the flow that is coming forward. At no point in time should you be rejecting the emotions that are coming up, throwing yourself into a downward spiral, a negative spiral, adding more fuel to the fire by, moving in that direction of negativity. That is not going to help your journey. Give yourself the grace, give yourself the time, give yourself the right, appropriate techniques and tools that you are going to need to really move forward with these pullbacks. Because once you do that, your foundation will become stronger and firmer as you move forward. The good news is that as you keep experiencing this throughout, it eventually does get better. The pullbacks become weaker almost, so you don't experience that dramatic shift that you do earlier on in the journey. It gets, softer and softer, you can say, to a point that you're able to move through them with much more ease. But recognizing them as they come up, giving yourself your grace to move through it is going to be key so that you can really move through this with much more ease. It is not going to help you to really give up, get frustrated, go down that negative path, because that's just going to prolong your awakening journey. If you meet, these pullbacks or the new things that are coming up with resistance, that is going to hurt your journey in terms of it's going to take more time to integrate whatever is coming up for you. And integration is absolutely the key here in order to keep making that inward and upward progress. So just remember that when you can actually understand oscillations, you will stop fearing them. And that's why it's so important to understand when this happens on your journey. The more you can meet it with awareness, the more they soften, the easier it becomes for you to flow through your awakening journey. Thank you so much for listening. I really hope this was helpful. God bless.